I'd like to start with the concept of half-truths. I often say in my interviews that a lot of people are giving 70, 80, 90 even percent truth, but not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. So what's your take and observations on that?
Yeah, this is a great place to start because I do feel like the quote unquote health freedom community movement, like whatever moniker we're giving it, is riddled with half truths. And I know a lot of us have been talking about it behind the scenes. And then at the same time, there's criticism for talking about it as though it counts the good work people are doing, as though we're trying to create rifts in the community. And I feel like there's so many shell games going on that the half-truths, even if they're coming from the most well-intended people who are simply ignorant, can be extremely dangerous. And this new kind of unspoken but increasingly spoken dictate that we're not allowed to talk about it has me suspicious, especially since like people like you and I have been telling the truth. I mean, really railing from the tops of the rooftops for decades. And then you have these people who've just stepped into the space trying to control the conversation based on either their ignorance or whoever, the lies that they may or may not be propping up. So it feels more and more relevant. And I notice those of us who are speaking about it are the ones who are being told to shut up and like know our place.
Right. So it seems that speculating or investigating or questioning, there's some shaming and gaslighting and accusations of causing more division, which we know is the name of the game. However, to call out people that are not, I would say even maybe consciously giving the whole truth, and it's a Marxist tactic to inject a lie into the truth. I call them tries, truth mixed with lies. That is a very conscious tactic to subvert. So what do you think is the solution?
For me, the solution is always truth and more truth. And so I first noticed this around the time when Bernie was running for president and there was, other information coming through that didn't look so great for him. And someone from our then community, I'm sure you've been as kicked out as I have, said, stop talking about these things. You're endangering the movement. And I had said at the time, if your movement is reliant upon bearing the truth, then your movement has issues. And I'm hearing the exact same thing coming out of the quote unquote health freedom community right now, where it's like, no, I'm not really allowed to say anything I want. And if that endangers your agenda, then you need to really look at your agenda. So, I mean, for me, the solution to everything is just more and more information and more dialogue. And one thing that I'll say is it's not about calling out the people per se, it's calling about the untruths themselves, calling out the conflicts of interest themselves, calling out the very problems that when we're looking at it through the lens of the Hegelian dialect, if we're not allowed to question what they're claiming are problems, be it a virus, the shape of the planet, what's really going on with the climate, X, Y, Z, if we're not allowed to question the quote unquote problem, then there's always going to be the need for the solutions that they create the problems to set up. And I feel like a lot of the people who are leading these conversations don't understand. I don't think they're all necessarily operating with nefarious intent, but they're out of their league. And I think that's why they've been placed in these positions. And so it's interesting to notice those of us who are having these conversations on the side have been in this game for a really long time. And those of us who are trying to tell us to shut up while they get in bed with darker and darker figures and start, rallying for more and more questionable ideas have just been placed there in the last couple of years. So I think it's education as to all these techniques and also realizing that it's not personal. I don't think RFK is a bad guy, and I'm not saying that he hasn't done wonderful things, but I'm saying there's a money trail that's questionable, and we have to start looking at it. There are associations that lead very directly to techno-fascism that we have to be able to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely. As you're speaking, I'm wondering, how do you teach someone discernment? How do you, when someone might not know the details of a subject and the person comes across as charismatic and knowledgeable, and the people will not be able to make that a fine distinction, and then you slip in those little lies. Like, I just give an example, not like you said, it's not about the people, but let's say like now Dr. Drew is doing a lot of interviews, and for me, he's like your establishment. Up until 3 months ago, you were on Tim Pool's still peddling this jab to elderly people. So you're a TV doctor, and yet now you've co-opted, and all these people, like, we've been in this health freedom, like you've said, for a long time, and people might not make the distinction that Dr. Drew is not a health freedom fighter, in my opinion.
I mean, I think if we're going to go to the fundamental level, we have to dispel this myth of celebrities as some sort of gods. I feel like celebrity culture is really the problem, because once again, you know, you take these people who are quote unquote trusted leaders, which is a definitive propaganda technique, and we're supposed to believe everything that they say and not look too deeply. So I think it's, you know, like the conversation that you and I are having now, and realizing it's like, I really don't appreciate the allegation that we're attempting to sow division in the movement. All I'm ever trying to do is speak for truth and justice. You know, if someone else wants to make it a movement, that's their shit. I'm a journalist. I'm not an activist, and I'm going to talk about the truth as I see it. So I think it's important that we have these conversations, and for people who, you know, well-intended though they may be, have been thrust into positions of quote unquote authority in the health movement without understanding propaganda techniques and whatnot. I really think it would be lovely to see a degree of humility where there's, you know, the willingness to look at how many ops are coalescing, and it's not, you know, everything is very shady and obscure. And right now, you know, Andrew Kaufman and I talked about this on my podcast this week, like, whether they know it or not, this is a really ugly Trojan horse that's going in a very bad direction that a lot of the health freedom people seem to be steering people towards. So I think it's just a matter of education, which, as we both know, is getting tougher and tougher with the targeting, the shadow banning, right, whatnot. But we need to just keep running our big, beautiful, ferocious mouths off. Hey, superstars, thank you so much for sharing your sacred attention with me. If you are receiving any value whatsoever from my videos, I am encouraging you to give back, to pay it forward by supporting me on my Patreon community, on my locals community, on both. Your support allows me to keep on keeping on and to keep making content like this. It used to be much easier back in the days of a free press, but now, given all of the censorship and the shadow banning, it really is challenging for content creators to continue to put out so much work. I'll just speak for myself. I'm excited for it to be easier for me to continue to put out more content. And the primary way that it can be easier is by you supporting me financially by way of my Patreon and or my locals, where for as little as $5 a month, you get to be my hero and receive oodles of bonus content, and we both get to win. Okay, thank you so much for your support, for your attention, and for being omniscopic amazingness.